Zack and Wicky is a point-and-click puzzle adventure that many people no doubt wrote off due to its somewhat childish appearance, but doing so would be a huge disservice as the game features some of the most ingenious head-scratchers I've ever encountered. Sure, the hero is a boy pirate named Zack with a flying monkey capable of transforming into a magical bell, but make no mistake, this game takes no prisoners and isn't afraid to challenge you. Now there's 4 main worlds, which are all made up of about 4 to 6 stages where you must figure out how to access a treasure chest that is really a simple ordeal. Each puzzle starts off by giving you an overview of the level so you get a small grasp on what you'll be doing. As you guide Zack, you'll come into contact with various items throughout the environment that all have a role to play in unlocking your path towards the treasure, from centipedes that turn into swords to frogs that can be transformed into bombs. Figuring out your way forward is never exactly clear and comes down to a lot of trial and error, but therein lies the fun and challenge that Zack and Wicky presents. Then there's the awesome boss battles that range from outsmarting the village chief to aiming mirrors to shoot and reflect a laser into a gigantic snow line. These battles will put your mental health to the test, as they all offer up their own unique challenge to overcome, but with a keen understanding of all the mechanics in play, you'll soon be able to come out on top. Overall, Zack and Wicky is easily one of the most enjoyable titles on the Wii, with great playtime, unique use of the Wii remote and mind-blowing puzzles, so if you come across it, make sure you add it to your collection. Castlevania Judgement is one of those games you're going to either love or absolutely hate with a passion. It sees you getting 13 characters from different eras across the series as they're all brought together by a mysterious rift in time. Each of them have their own separate story to play through, with the main goal being to take out the entity responsible for the rifts. Now on the surface it appears to be a very simplistic fighting game, but even though it might be easy to pick up and play, it's also extremely hard to master for those willing to give it the time. While it's true that most attacks and combos are executed with simple movements of the Wii remote in conjunction with various button presses, the timing of them is the most important aspect. On top of this, you've got cancels, sub-weapons and guard breaks to contend with, which severely ups the ante of each fight, and that's not even mentioning each character's signature hyper move. When the blue gauge is full for your fighter, players can pull one of these off, and when it connects, the game enters a real-time cinematic, showcasing your character bringing down some serious pain onto your opponent. As I mentioned earlier, this game won't be for everyone. Castlevania fans will likely enjoy the different take on the series, but for those of you who are fond of serious fighting games, there's just not that much depth to the systems in place. That being said, it's still a fun fighter, and something that's well worth checking out if you're looking for something new to play on the Wii. When you think of racing games on the Wii, Mario Kart is likely the first game that will come to mind, but as with all consoles, many games get released that largely end up being forgotten, and Trackmania is one of them. If you're not familiar with the series, it's not exactly a conventional racing game, but instead focuses on achieving the fastest time across an increasingly difficult amount of tracks that defy logic and gravity. As you would expect, the gameplay isn't exactly rooted within realism, and instead offers up a somewhat arcadey approach to the driving, with the main goal being to achieve medals that are rewarded based on your performance, as well as money which can be spent on various items for your car, improving its performance, but more importantly pieces of track which can be used to create your own courses in a pretty well thought out editor mode. Here is where Trackmania truly shines, and being able to create your own tracks adds an incredible amount of longevity to the game. There are about 200 courses included, so for those who don't wish to dabble with creating their own, there's still plenty to work through and enjoy. From traditional Formula 1 style tracks to almost Super Mario-esque worlds of colourful islands and crazy jumps are all waiting for you to complete, and when you add multiplayer into the mix, Trackmania is by far one of the most comprehensive racing games you can find on the system. After the somewhat lackluster DS port, the Wii version of Trackmania was a welcome return to form that managed to capture the essence of the original PC release that's as enjoyable today as it was when it first arrived. So if you're looking for a new racer to add to your Wii library, Trackmania is well worth considering. Capcom has long been in the business of crossovers, with huge hits like X-Men vs Street Fighter or Marvel vs Capcom under their belt. They're no strangers to mixing their cast of characters with that of another company's, and this time around they chose to work with the popular Japanese animation studio Tatsu. Now the Capcom vs series is well known for its overly simple pick-up-and-play approach, and this time around it's no different. As usual, all of the fights take place on a 2D plane, with each player utilizing an enormous amount of characters from both company's history. Naturally, they all share a string of basic attacks as well as specific individual special moves which can all be worked into combos. Unlike in other versus games, a combo meter for each player is placed at the bottom of the screen, which is made up of 5 different levels. The more each player dishes out or takes damage, the more it increases, and if you get at least one level, you can perform one of your super combos. Not only do they deal a ton of damage, but they're all accompanied by some spectacular animations and effects that light up the screen in style. With 26 characters to learn and master, dozens of team combinations, a sleek and pleasing graphical style, and plenty of goodies to unlock and enjoy, Tatsu vs Capcom is by far one of the best examples of a fighting game on the Wii. It's just a real shame that it's largely been forgotten as the years have gone on, and I for one would love to see it make a comeback through a re-release or even a sequel for modern systems. Now, the Wii had its fair share of weird games, but one that has to take the crown is Captain Rainbow. Developed by the same team behind another obscure Nintendo game, Chibi Robo, it unfortunately never found its way outside of Japan, but is now available in the West thanks to a full English translation that sees you filling the role of Nick, a young man who has an uncanny ability to transform into a yo-yo wielding superhero known as Captain Rainbow. The premise of the game is that Nick's TV show, also known as Captain Rainbow, got really unpopular, so he found his way to Mimin Island, where obscure, unknown characters from Nintendo's past live, in the hopes of having their wishes granted. Nick takes it upon himself to assist the other citizens in their day-to-day lives in order to form a strong bond with them, which is how each and every one of them will eventually have their dreams come true. Now, the gameplay is extremely straightforward, and you get to aid a lot of interesting folks, so you're always playing new minigames and interacting with them. For example, you'll come across Little Mac from Punch-Out, who's become an absolute fat mess, and you'll have to train him up through a rhythm-styled minigame to help him get back into shape. Aside from these character-focused moments, you can explore the whole town, where there are many different activities to undertake, may that be fishing or catching bugs to fill up an encyclopedia, or transforming into Captain Rainbow and unlocking new paths by breaking many of the obstacles that block your way forward. On the whole, I absolutely love the charm and personality that Captain Rainbow brings to the table, and if you're like me and a longtime fan of Nintendo, there's plenty here that you'll love and appreciate. Dragon Ball Revenge of King Piccolo is a beat-em-up that shares much in common with the likes of Final Fight or Streets of Rage, and sees you making your way through a variety of levels that are filled with enemies and several platforming sections to overcome. It's all very simple, and it's nothing players haven't seen before. However, it's done well enough that the game is enjoyable even if you're not a fan of the source material. Now, apart from having to beat the living crap out of everything in sight, you'll also have to locate several treasure chests that are lurking throughout each level, and it's here where the platforming comes into full swing, providing a nice respite from the nigh on endless battles you'll find yourself encountering. Thankfully, young Goku has many tricks up his sleeves, from basic attacks to more powerful special moves that can wipe the floor with the opposition. Controlling him feels very tight and responsive, which is almost essential for a game of this kind, and the only motion control to speak of is literally shaking your controller at certain points, which is quite rare throughout the game. Now, shifting gears to the presentation, Revenge of King Piccolo is very well crafted, with a colourful and crisp cel-shaded visual style that's fitting for the series and allows each character you'll come across to feel faithful to the show. This same attention to detail is afforded to the environments themselves that effortlessly fade into the background and create a nice atmosphere for each level you'll be fighting through. Overall, it's not the best beat 'em up on the system by any means, but if you're a fan of the genre, and especially Dragon Ball itself, there's enough here to warrant a purchase or download if you're looking for your next Dragon Ball fix. The Wii had its fair share of games that utilised the Wii Remote in interesting ways, but by far one of the most innovative titles the console ever received was JWYs Adventure, that took full advantage of everything the console had to offer. Like its title suggests, you take up the part of JWY, who's out to save his friends from an evil baron who wants to pollute the world for his own evil schemes. In order to do so, you'll have to overcome a selection of extremely inventive levels and boss fights that see you using the Wii Remote's motion capabilities as you hold it horizontally and tilt it to move, whilst tapping one of the two face buttons that allow you to jump. On the surface, it sounds really simple, but JWY isn't no ordinary droplet of water, as he also has the power to change the weather, and this is how you'll be defeating enemies and solving many of the puzzles that the game's made up of. By fanning the Wii Remote up and down, JWY will make wind blow, and some enemies will be put to sleep by this. On the other hand, by shaking the Wii Remote left to right, JWY will cause a powerful earthquake to destroy boulders blocking your path or certain enemies that need ready to be toppled over. Add to this several elemental abilities such as lightning and fire, which specific enemies are either weak or resistant to, and what you have is a game that's simple to pick up and play, but also provides enough depth for seasoned players to enjoy as well. When it comes down to it, JWYs Adventure is a fun and ingenious game with some very original level designs. Unfortunately though, due to the motion controls, a lot of players ignored it, but if you're like me and enjoy puzzle-orientated platformers, JWYs Adventure is an absolute gem, and it's one game I can highly recommend you check out. From Monopoly to Mario Party and Trivial Pursuit, the Wii had its fair share of party games to enjoy, but one that never got its chance in the limelight was Fortune Street. On first glance, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this is nothing more than a Mario Party clone with Dragon Quest characters thrown in, and personally I thought it was going to be an expanded version of the command board minigame from Kingdom Hearts, but in reality it ends up being a mix of both. Now there's 4 players that participate in each game, with them all starting off with a certain amount of gold coins. With these coins you buy space on the board and build shops, and if another player lands on it, they must pay a small fee to the owner. As you construct more stores, you can choose to make improvements to your property, which will increase the amount players must pay and bump up your net worth. Along the way, you'll also find suits, hearts, diamonds, spades and clubs that when a full set is returned to the starting point, you're rewarded with additional advantages of money. The overall aim is to return to the starting point with a specific net worth first in order to win the game. Of course, strewn across the board are several activities that help increase the fun factor and competitiveness of the experience, and it's here where you'll be having the most fun, especially with a group of mates as you all fight to come out on top. Sure, you'll have a good time playing it on your own, but like most board games, Fortune Street comes to life during multiplayer, and this is the game's best aspect by far. If you're a long-time Dragon Quest and Mario fan, there's plenty of content included, such as a generous amount of characters to play as from both series, as well as several musical numbers many fans will know and love. So if you've exhausted the other party games on the system, Fortune Street is definitely worth checking out. Sin and Punishment's star successor is the sequel to an often overlooked N64 game. It's an on-rail shooter with a playful anime aesthetic, all set in a futuristic sci-fi world where you take up the fight as 2 characters, Isa and Kachi. With the full might of the world's military hunting them down, the goal of the game is to find a way to get off the planet and find safety. The story does end up feeling like a bit of an afterthought if I'm being honest, but what Sin and Punishment gets so right is the gameplay. It sees you traveling through several different locales, from volcanoes to underwater and even outer space. It's extremely chaotic and challenging, but at the same time it's both fun and addictive. You must shoot anything and everything that you can get your sights on while racking up your score before being ushered onto the next stage, and thankfully the weapons are pretty straightforward. Both characters have rapid fire blasters that can quickly whittle down the enemy's defense. Isa can charge up his gun to launch a devastating proximity bomb, while Kachi can annihilate everything with homing attacks. Using all of these abilities is the key to surviving the mayhem, and this is mostly apparent during the boss fights that come in all different shapes and sizes. Not only are they tough to take down, but they're smart. They do have some attack patterns, but they are mostly very unpredictable, making for some of the best fights in the game. Regardless if you're in for it for the glory or the fun, Star Successor will have something for you. It's exactly what a sequel should be. It takes an established formula and improves upon it in every way. As its name implies, it truly is a worthy successor. Hironobu Sakaguchi has worked on countless high-profile games in the past, hits like Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger and Xenogears to name a few, and what really made those games memorable was his ability to tell a story. May it be a tale of heroism or coming of age, the games he's worked on have an uncanny ability to suck the player into the worlds they depict, and the last story is no different. It plays like a unique blend of Mass Effect, Kingdom Hearts and Metal Gear Solid, and has elements of first-person, stealth and a very action-focused battle system. You take up the fighter's Zeal and his close-knit group of friends as he sets out to become a knight of the kingdom's empire. In true Sakaguchi fashion, the story is one hell of an adventure, which I have no intent of spoiling, so let's talk about some gameplay. The real meat of it lies in the combat system, where you get to move around the battlefield in real time and attack enemies at will. You've got your basic sword attacks, which can be linked to form combos, as well as projectile weapons that give you an advantage from a distance. However, you are not responsible only for dishing out damage yourself. Your party are largely controlled by an AI that is pretty decent at standing its ground, but it requires your input to be most effective. This results in most battles becoming chaotic, but never to the point where it feels like an absolute mess. Juggling your abilities and looking after your friends is the name of the game. With a well thought out progression system in place, you're constantly learning new ways to deal with each and every threat you encounter. When it comes down to it, the last story is one of the greatest adventures on the Wii, and it's just a real shame that it's never found its way onto modern systems. Well, that does it for another video. Keep an eye out for part 2 as that will be coming up soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos which release every Monday and Thursday. You can follow me on all of the socials which are linked below to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters Rhino, Skill Jim, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman, Fake and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining my Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I'll catch you next time.